flowers are rather Moulton's duties than yours, especially when such intellectual pleasure awaits you. Your German grammar is on the table. Pray open at page 15. We shall continue yesterday's lesson.
But I don't like German. It isn't at all a becoming language. I know perfectly well that I look quite plain after my German lesson.
Child, you know how anxious your guardian is that you should improve yourself in every way. He laid particular stress on your German grammar as he was leaving for town yesterday. Indeed, he lays particular stress on your German grammar every time he leaves for town.
Dear Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes he is so serious that I think he cannot be quite well.
Your guardian enjoys the best of health, and his gravity of demeanour is to be commended in one so incredibly young as he is. I know no other person with a higher sense of duty and responsibility.
I suppose that is why he often looks a little bored when we three are together.
Cecily, I am shocked. Mr. Worthing has many troubles in his life. Idle merriment and triviality have no place within his context of conversation. And you must remember how anxious he is about that unfortunate young man, his brother.
I wish Uncle Jack would allow that unfortunate young man, his brother, to come down here sometimes. We might have a good influence over him, Miss Prism. I am sure you certainly would. You know German and geology, and things of that kind influence a man very much.
I am not sure that even I could produce any sort of change on a man who, by his own brother's admission, is irreversibly weak. Nor am I sure that I wish to reclaim him. I am not in favour of this modern mania of turning bad people into good people at a moment's notice. You must put away your diary, Cecily. I really do not see why you should keep one at all.
I keep a diary in order to enter the wonderful secrets of my life. If I did not write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
Memory, my dear Cecily, is the diary in which we all keep.
Yes, but it usually chronicles the things that have never happened and couldn't possibly have happened. I believe memory is responsible for nearly all the 3-volume novels that Moody sends us.
Do not talk slightingly of 3-volume novels. I wrote one myself in happier days.
Did you really, Miss Prism? How wonderfully clever you are! I hope it did not end happily. I don't like novels that end happily. They depress me so much.
Well, the good ended happily and the bad unhappily. That is what fiction means.
I suppose so, but it seems very unfair. Was the novel ever published?
Alas, no. It was abandoned. By that I mean lost or mislaid. Now, back to your work. All this chatter is profitless.
But I see dear Dr. Chasuble coming up through the garden.
Dr. Chasuble, this is indeed a pleasure.
And how are we this morning, dear Miss Prism? I hope you are well.
Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. I think it would do her so much good to have a short stroll with you in the park, Dr. Chasuble.
Cecily, I have made no mention of any headache at all.
No, I know that, dear Miss Prism, but I felt instinctively that you had a headache. Indeed. I was thinking about that and not about my German lesson when the rector came in.
I hope, Cecily, you're not inattentive.
Oh, I'm afraid I am.
This is strange. Were I fortunate enough to be one of Miss Prism's pupils, I would hang upon her lips. I spoke metaphorically, of course. My metaphor was drawn from bees and such. Mr. Worthing, I suppose, has not yet returned from town.
We do not expect Mr. Worthing back until tomorrow afternoon.
Yes. He's one of those who likes to spend his Sundays in London, not one of those who likes to live solely for enjoyment, as by all accounts that unfortunate young man, his brother, seems to be. By any means, I shall no longer disturb Egeria and her pupil any longer.
Egeria? My name is Letitia, Doctor.
A classical allusion, merely, drawn from the pagan authors. I shall see you both, no doubt, at evensong.
I think, dear Doctor, I might take that stroll with you after all. I find myself with a headache, and I feel a walk might do me some good.
With pleasure, Miss Prism, with pleasure. We might go as far as the schools and back.
That sounds delightful. Cecily, you shall continue reading your political economy in my absence. The chapter on the fall of the rupee is quite a mix. Even metallic problems have their melodramatic side.
Horrid political economy. Horrid geography. Horrid German.
And Mr. Earnest Worthing has just driven up from the station. He's brought his luggage with him.
Mr. Ernest Worthing B. for the Albany W. Uncle Jack's brother. Did you tell him Mr. Worthing was in town?
Yes, he seemed very much disappointed. I mentioned him that you and Miss Prism in the garden told him. He said he was very anxious to speak to you privately for a moment.
Ask Mr. Ernest Worthing to come out here. And I suppose you had better talk to the housekeeper about a room for him.
Yes, miss.
I have never met any really wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. I'm so afraid he will look just like everyone else. He does.
You are my little cousin Cecily, I'm sure.
You're under some strange mistake. I'm not little. In fact, I believe I'm more than usually tall for my age. But I am your cousin Cecily.
Pleasure.
You, I see from your card, are Uncle Jack's brother, my cousin Ernest. My wicked cousin Ernest.
You mustn't think that I'm wicked, cousin Cecily. I'm not really wicked at all.
Well, if you are not, then you have certainly been deceiving us all in a most inexcusable manner. I hope you have not been leading a double life, pretending to be wicked and being really good all the time. That would be hypocrisy.
Well, I have been rather reckless, I must admit.
I am glad to hear it.
Well, now that you mention it, I've been very bad in my own devious little way.
I don't think you should be so proud of that. Although I'm sure it must have been very pleasant.
It was. But it is much pleasanter being here with you.
I can't understand how you're here at all. Uncle Jack wanted back to Monday afternoon.
Oh, really? That is a great disappointment. I'm obliged to be up by the first train on Monday. I have an appointment in London and I'm very anxious to miss.
Couldn't you miss it anywhere but in London?
No. The appointment is in London, you see.
Well, I know, of course, how important it is not to keep a business engagement if one wants to retain any sense of the beauty of life. But still, I think you had better wait until Uncle Jack arrives. I know he wants to speak to you about your emigrating.
About my what?
You're emigrating. He has gone out to buy your outfit.
I wouldn't trust Jack with my outfit. He has no taste in neckties at all.
Oh, I don't think you would require neckties. He's sending you to Australia.
Australia? I'd sooner die.
Well, he said at dinner on Wednesday night that you would have to choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
The accounts that I've received of Australia and the next world aren't particularly encouraging. No, this world is good enough for me, thank you.
Yes, but are you good enough for it?
I'm afraid I'm not that. That is why I'm here. Would you mind reforming myself this afternoon?
I'm afraid I have no time this afternoon.
Well, would you mind me reforming myself this afternoon?
It is rather chaotic of you, but I think you should try.
I'm feeling better already.
You're looking a little worse.
I guess it's because I'm hungry.
How thoughtless of me! I should have remembered that when one is going to lead an entirely new life, one requires regular and wholesome meals. Would you come in?
Might I have a buttonhole first? I can't stomach an appetite unless I have a buttonhole first.
A Marshallien?
I'd sooner have a pink rose, Cecily.
Why?
Because you are like a pink rose.
I don't think it can be right for you to talk to me like that. Miss Prism never says such things to me.
Then Mrs. Prism is a short-sighted old lady. You are the prettiest girl I've ever seen, Cecily.
Miss Prism says that all good looks are a snare.
They are a snare that every sensible man would like to be caught up in.
I don't think I would care to catch a sensible man. I should know what to talk to him about.
Well, let me tell you about my poor invalid friend Goodfun.
Very, very ill in a town quite close by.
We would have been back sooner, of course, had I not got lost in your eyes.
Mr. Worthing,
Mr. Worthing?
this is indeed a surprise. We didn't expect you back till tomorrow afternoon.
I have returned sooner than expected. Dr. Chosable, I
if you are well.
Dear Mr. Worthing, I trust this garb of woes and does not betoken some terrible calamity.
My brother,
More shameful debts and extravagances.
Still leading his life of pleasure?
dead.
Your brother Earnest, dead.
Quite dead.
What a lesson for him. I'm sure he will profit by it.
Mr. Worthing, you have my sincerest condolences. At least you have the consolation of knowing you were always the most generous and forgiving of brothers.
My brother had many faults, yet it is still a sad, sad blow.
Very, very sad indeed. Were you with him in the end?
No. He died in Paris. I just received a telegram from the manager of the Grand Hotel.
Was the cause of death mentioned?
A severe chill, it seems.
As a man sows, so shall he reap.
Charity, dear Miss Prism, charity. None of us are perfect. I myself am peculiarly susceptible to drafts. Will the interment take place here?
No. He seemed to have expressed a desire to be buried in Paris.
In Paris? In Paris? I fear that hardly points to any very serious state of mind. You would no doubt wish me to make some slight allusion to this terrible domestic affliction next Sunday. My sermon on the meaning of the manna in the wilderness can be adapted to almost any situation, distressing or joyful. I have delivered it at confirmations, christenings, days of humiliations, and festival days. The last time I delivered it was at the cathedral on behalf of the Society for the Prevention of Misintent upon Via Parodis. The bishop who was present at the time was much struck by some of the analogies I drew.
Ah, that reminds me, Dr. Chosen. You mentioned christenings. I suppose you know how to christen, right? Of course you do. I suppose you're christening all the time.
It is, I regret to say, one of the rector's most constant duties within the parish. I often talk with the poorer classes on the topic, but they don't seem to understand the thrift of it all.
But is there any particular infant in whom you're interested, Mr. Welling? Your brother, I believe, was unmarried, was he not?
He wasn't.
People who enjoy a life of pleasure rarely are.
But no, it is not for any child. I am quite fond of children, but I was hoping you would christen me, if you have no doubt about it.
But surely, Mr. Welling, you have been christened already, have you not?
I don't remember anything of it.
But have you any grave doubts on the matter?
I certainly intend to have. But do you not think that I might be a little too old or anything?
No. The sprinkling and indeed the immersion of adults is a perfectly canonical practice.
The immersion?
You need have no apprehensions, Mr. Worthing. The sprinkling is all that is necessary, or indeed, I think, advisable. Our weather is so changeable. At what hour will you wish the ceremony performed?
I might trot around about 5 if that suits you.
Perfectly. In fact, I have two very similar ceremonies to perform at the time. A case of twins that occurred on one of the cottages on your own outlying estate. Poor Jenkins the carter, a most hard-working man.
I don't see much fun being christened along with other babies. That would be childish. Would 5:30 suit better?
Admirably. And now, I will no longer intrude on a house of sorrow. I will merely beg you to be not too much bowed down by grief. What seem to us bitter trials are often blessings in disguise.
This seems to me to be a blessing of an extremely obvious kind.
Uncle Jack! Oh, I'm pleased to see you back, but what a horrid morning, man. Do go and take it off.
Cecily!
My child.
What's the matter, Uncle Jack? You look happy. You look as if you had a toothache, and I've got such a surprise for you. Who do you think is in the dining room? Your brother.
What?
Your brother Earnest. He arrived about half an hour ago.
My brother? I don't have a brother.
Oh, don't say that, Uncle Jack. You can't be so heartless as to disown your own brother. However badly he may have behaved in the past. I'll tell him to come out, and he wants to cancel with him, won't you, Uncle Jack?
Ah! These are joyful tidings!
After we had all been resigned to his death, his sudden return seems particularly distressing.
My brother is in the dining room. I don't know what to make of this. It's utterly absurd. Oh, good heavens.
How are you, my dear brother? I've come expressly to town to apologize for the way I behaved, and that I intend to live a better life from now on.
Uncle Jack, you're not going to refuse your own brother's hand.
Nothing can induce me to take his hand. I think his being here disgraceful, and he perfectly knows well why.
Do be nice, Uncle Jack. There is some good in everyone. Earnest has just been telling me about his poor invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, whom he goes to visit so often. And surely there must be much good in one who is kind to an invalid and leaves the pleasures of London to sit by a bed of pain.
Oh, he's been talking about his invalid friend Bunbury, has he?
Yes, he has told me all about poor Mr. Bunbury and his terrible state of health.
Well, I won't have to talk about Bunbury or about anything else. It is enough to drive you perfectly frantic.
I must admit that all the faults are my own, but Brother John's coldness to me seems rather hurtful.
Uncle Jack, if you don't take hands with Earnest, I will never forgive you.
Never forgive me?
Never, never, never.
Fine. But this is the last time I shall do so.
It's pleasant, is it not, to see such perfect reconciliation? I think we might leave the two brothers alone.
Cecily, you will come with us.
Certainly, Miss Prism. My little task of reconciliation is over.
You have done a beautiful action today, my child.
We must not be premature in our judgments.
I feel very happy.
Algy, you young scoundrel! What on earth are you doing here?
Well, I must say, I find
I put Mr. Earnest's things in room into yours, sir. I suppose that is all right.
What?
Mr. Earnest's luggage, sir. I've unpacked them in room into yours.
His luggage?
Yes, sir. 2 portmanteaus, 1 dressing case, 2 hat boxes, and a large luncheon basket.
I'm afraid I can't stay more than a week this time.
Medway,
Yes, sir.
call the dog cart at once. Mr. Earnest has been called back to town quite suddenly.
I
Yes.
have not been called anywhere.
Yes, you
I
have.
haven't heard anyone call me.
Your duty as a gentleman calls you.
My duties as a gentleman have never interfered with my pleasures in the slightest.
I'm quite aware of that fact.
Well, Cecily is a darling, isn't she?
I will not have you talk about Miss Cardew in that manner. I don't like it.
Well, I don't like your clothes. Or your mourning man. Completely preposterous to be in mourning for someone who's staying with you for a whole week. Why don't you go and change?
You will certainly not be staying with me for a whole week as a guest or as anything else. You must leave by the 4:05 train. Now.
Well, I certainly won't be leaving while you're in mourning. You wouldn't leave me if I was in mourning, would you? I'd find it most hurtful.
Will you leave if I go change?
If you make it quick, I've never seen anyone take so long to get dressed, and with such little result.
It's a lot better than being overdressed as you always are.
If I am occasionally overdressed, I make up for it with being immensely overeducated.
Your vanity is ridiculous. Your conduct an outrage, and your presence here in my garden utterly absurd. However, you have got to catch the 4:05 train. Have a nice journey. This Bunburying, as you call it, has not been quite successful.
I think it has. I'm in love with Cecily, and that's everything. But I must see her at once and make arrangements for another Bunbury. Ah, there she is.
Oh, I merely came back to water the roses. I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
Oh no, he's gone to send a dog cart for me.
Oh, is he going to take you for a nice drive?
No, he's sending me away.
Then have we got to part?
I'm afraid so. It's so painful parting, isn't it?
It's always painful to part from people whom one has known for a very brief space of time. The absence of old friends one can endure with equanimity. But even a momentary separation from someone to whom one has just been introduced is almost unbearable.
state quite openly and frankly that you...
Dog under the door, sir.
It can wait, Merriman, for 5 minutes.
Yes, thanks.
I'm sorry. I hope I shan't offend you if I state quite openly and frankly that you seem to me to be the visible personification of absolute perfection.
I think your frankness does you great credit, Earnest. If you will allow me, I will copy your remarks into my diary.
Do you really? Might I read it, please?
Oh no. You see, it is simply a very young girl's record of her own thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. When it appears in volume form, I hope you'll order a copy. But pray, Earnest, don't stop. I delight in taking down from dictation. I have reached absolute perfection. You can go on, I'm quite ready for you. Oh, don't cough, Earnest. When one is dictating, one should speak fluently and not cough. Besides, I don't know how to snore cough.
Cecily, ever since I first laid eyes upon you, I have dared to love you wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly.
I don't think you should tell me that you love me wildly, passionately, devotedly, hopelessly. Hopelessly doesn't seem to make much sense, does it?
Oh, Cecily.
The dog can't wait for the door, sir.
Tell it to come round next week, Mary. I'm staying.
Yes, sir.
Uncle Jack would be very much annoyed if you knew you were staying until next week.
I don't care about Jack. I don't care about anyone. I only care about you, Cecily. I love you. You will marry me, won't you?
You silly boy. Of course. Why, we've been engaged for the last 3 months.
For the last 3 months?
It will be exactly 3 months on Thursday.
But how did we become engaged?
Well, ever since Uncle Jack first confessed to us that he had a younger brother who was very wicked and bad, you, of course, have formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and Miss Prism. And of course, a man who is much talked about is always very attractive. One feels there must be something in him after all. I dare say it was foolish of me, but I fell in love with you, Earnest.
Oh, Cecily. And when was this engagement actually settled then?
On the 14th of February last.
Ah, Valentine's.
Worn out by your entire ignorance of my existence, I determined to end the matter, one way or the other.
How?
And after a long struggle with myself, I accepted you. I lived a dear old tree down in the garden.
Oh.
The next day, I bought this little ring in your name. And this is a little bangle with a true lover's knot that I promise you always to wear.
Did I buy this? It is very pretty, isn't it?
Yes, you have so good taste, Earnest. It's the excuse I've always given for you leading such a bad life. And this is where I keep all your dear letters.
But Cecily, I haven't written you any letters.
You need hardly remind me of that, Earnest. I remember only too well that I was forced to write your letters for you. I wrote almost 3 times a week and sometimes oftener.
Might I read them?
Oh no, it would make you far too conceited. The 3 you wrote me after our engagement was broken off are so beautiful and so badly spelled that even now I can hardly read them without crying a little.
But was our engagement ever broken off?
Of course it was. On the 22nd of last March. You can read the entry if you like. Today I broke off my engagement with Earnest. I feel it is better to do so. The weather still continues charming.
But why did you break it off, Cecily? Had I done something wrong? I had done nothing wrong. I'm particularly hurt that you broke off our engagement, especially when the weather was so charming.
It would hardly have been a really serious engagement if it hadn't been broken up at least once.
Oh, Cecily.
I forgave you before the week was out.
Really? You are a sweet people, aren't you?
You dear romantic boy. I hope your hair curls naturally, does it?
Yes, with a little help from others.
I am so glad. I don't think I could break off our engagement again now that I've actually met you. Besides, of course, there is the question of your name.
My name?
Yes, you mustn't laugh at me, darling, but it had always been a girlish dream of mine to love someone whose name was Earnest. There is something in a name that seems to inspire absolute confidence. I pity any poor married woman whose husband is not called Earnest.
Cecily, you have a rector here, I presume, who's practiced in all the rites of the church?
Oh yes, Dr. Chasuble is a most learned man. He has never written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
I must see him upon most important christening at once. I must see him upon the most important business at once.
Oh!
I shan't be away for more than half an hour, I swear.
Well, considering that we have been engaged since February the 14th and that I've only met you today for the first time, I think it is rather hard that you should leave me for so long a period as half an hour.
Cecily,
Could you make it 20 minutes?
I'll be back in no time.
What an impetuous boy he is. I like his hair so much. I was endlessly lost in my diary.
Miss Fairfax called to see Mr. Worthing on very important business, she says.
Isn't Mr. Worthing in his library?
No, head office went to the rectory some time ago.
Pray ask the lady to come out here. Mr. Worthing is sure to be back soon, and you can bring tea.
Yes, miss.
Miss Fairfax, I suppose one of those good elderly women who are connected with Uncle Jack in some of his philanthropic work in London. I don't quite like women are interested in philanthropic work. I think it is so forward of them.
Miss Fairfax.
Pray let me introduce myself to you. My name is Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew. What a very sweet name. Something tells me we're going to be great friends. I like you already more than I can say, and my first impressions of people are never wrong.
How nice of you to like me so much after we have known each other for such a comparatively short time.
I may call you Cecily, may I not?
With pleasure.
And you will always call me Gwendolen, won't you?
If you wish.
Then it's quite settled, is it not?
I hope so.
Perhaps this is a favourable opportunity for my mentioning who I am. My father is Lord Bracknell. You have never heard of Papa, I suppose?
I don't think so.
Outside the family circle, Papa, I'm glad to say, is entirely unknown. I think that is quite as it should be. The home seems to me to be a proper sphere for the man, and of course once a man begins to neglect his domestic duties, he becomes painfully effeminate. And I don't like that. It makes men so very attractive. Cecily, Mamma's views on education are remarkably strict. I probably have to be extremely short-sighted. So do you mind my looking through my glasses?
Oh, not at all, Gwendolen. I am very fond of being looked at.
You are here on a short visit, I suppose?
Oh no, I live here.
Really? Your mother, no doubt, or some other distant relative of the Franchise resides here also?
Oh no, I have no mother, nor in fact any relations. My dear guardian, with the assistance of Miss Prism, has the arduous task of looking after me.
Your guardian?
Yes, I am Mr. Worthing's ward.
Strange, he never mentioned to me he had a ward. How secretive of him. He grows more interesting and... I cannot say, however, that the news inspires me with unmixed feelings of delight. I am very fond of you, Cecily. I have liked you ever since I met you. But I am bound to state that now that I know you are Mr. Worthing's ward, I can't help but wish that you were slightly older than you seem to be, and not quite so alluring in appearance. In fact, if I may speak candidly,
Pray do. I think that whenever one has something unpleasant to say, one should always be quite candid.
well, to speak with perfect candour, Cecily, I wish you were fully 42 and more than usually plain for your age. Earnest has a strong, upright nature. He's the very soul of truth and honour. Disloyalty would be impossible to him as deception. But even men of the most moral possible character are susceptible to the physical charms of others. Modern, no doubt, ancient history supplies circumstances would have made it the most painful examples of what I refer to. If it were not so, it should be quite unreadable.
I beg your pardon, Gwendolyn. Did you say Earnest?
Yes.
Oh, but it is not Mr. Earnest Worthing who is my guardian. It is his brother, his elder brother.
Strange. He never mentioned to me he had a brother.
I'm sorry to say they have not been on good terms for a long time.
Ah, that accounts for it then. And now that I think of it, I have never heard any man mention his brother. The subject seems distasteful. Cecily, you have lifted a load off my mind. I was growing almost anxious. It would have been terrible if any cat had come across a friendship like ours. Although you are quite sure it's not Mr. Earnest Worthing who's your guardian?
Quite sure. In fact, I'm going to be his.
I beg your pardon.
My dearest Gwendolyn, there is no reason why I should make a secret of it to you. Our little county newspaper is sure to come to the fact next week. Mr. Earnest Worthing and I are engaged or married.
There seems to be some slight error, dear Cecily. Mr. Earnest Worthing is engaged to me. The announcement appeared on the Morning Post Saturday at the latest.
You must be under some mistake. Ernest proposed to me exactly 10 minutes ago.
It is very curious, for he asked me to be his wife yesterday afternoon at 5:30. Do you care to verify? I never travel without my diary. One should always have something sensational to read on the train. I'm sorry, dear Cecily, if it's any disappointment to you, but I'm afraid I have the prior claim.
It would distress me more than I can tell you, dear Gwendolyn, if it caused you any mental or physical anguish. But I feel bound to point out that since Ernest proposed to you, he clearly has changed his mind.
If the poor boy has been entrapped into any foolish promise, I shall consider it my duty to rescue him at once, and with a firm hand.
Whatever unfortunate entanglement my dear boy may have got into, I will never reproach him with it after we are married.
Do you allude to me, Miss Cardew, as entanglement? You are presumptuous. At a moment of this time, it was more than a moral duty to speak one's mind. It becomes a pleasure.
Do you suggest, Miss Fairfax, that I entrapped Ernest into an engagement? How dare you? This is no time for wearing the shallow mask of manners. When I see a spade, I call it a spade.
I am glad to say I have never seen a spade. It is quite clear that our spheres are widely different.
Shall I make you do as usual, miss?
Yes, as usual.
Are there any interesting walks in the vicinity, Miss Cardew?
Oh yes, a great many. From the top of one of the hills, quite close, one can see 5 counties.
5 counties? No, I don't think I'd like that. I hate crowds.
I suppose that is why you live in town.
Well-kept garden this is, Miss Cardew.
So glad you like it, Miss Fairfax.
I had no idea there were any flowers in the country.
Oh, flowers are as common here, Miss Fairfax, as people are in London.
Personally, I don't understand how anybody can live in the country if anybody who is anybody does. The country always bores me to death.
That is what the newspapers call agricultural depression, is it not? I believe the aristocracy are suffering very much from it just at present. It is almost an epidemic amongst them, I have been told. May I offer you some tea, Miss Fairfax?
Thank you. Detestable girl.
Sugar?
No, thank you. Sugar is no longer fashionable.
Cake? Or bread and butter?
No, thank you for cake. Cake is rarely seen in the best households nowadays.
And that to Miss Fairfax.
You have filled my tea with lumps of sugar, and though I most distinctly asked for bread and butter, you have given me cake. I am known for the gentleness of my heart and the sweetness of my nature. But I warn you, Miss Cardew, you may go too far.
To save my poor, innocent, trusting boy from the machinations of any other girl, there are no lengths to which I would not go.
From the moment I saw you, I distrusted you. I found you false and deceitful. I am never deceived in such matters, and my first impressions are invariably right.
It seems to me, Miss Fairfax, that I am trespassing on your valuable time. No doubt you have many other calls of a similar character to perform in the neighborhood.
Ernest!
Gwendolyn, darling.
One moment. Can I ask, are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
To little Cecily? Of course not. What could have put such an idea into your pretty little head?
Thank you. You may.
I knew there must be some misunderstanding, Miss Fairfax. The gentleman who is at present holding his hand on your shoulder is my dead guardian, Mr. John Worthing.
I beg your pardon.
This is Uncle Jack. Here is
Jack!
Earnest.
Oh!
A moment. May I ask you, are you engaged to be married to this young lady?
What young lady? Good heavens, Gwendolyn, what are you doing here?
Yes, to good heavens, Gwendolyn. I mean to Gwendolyn.
No, what could have put that idea into your head?
Thank you. You may.
I thought there was some slight error, Miss Cardew. The man who is now embracing you is my cousin, Mr. Algernon Moncrief.
Algernon Moncrief. Oh! Are you called Algernon?
Well, I cannot deny the fact.
Oh!
You really called John?
I could deny it if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked. But no, my name is John. It has been John for years.
A gross deception has been practiced on both of us.
My poor wounded Cecily.
My sweet and prompt Gwendolyn.
You will call me sister, won't you?
There is just one question I would like to be allowed to put to my guardian.
An excellent idea. Mr. Worthing, there is just one question I'd like to be permitted to put forward towards you. Where is your brother Ernest? We are both engaged to be married to your brother Ernest, so it is so important to know where your brother Ernest is at present.
Gwendolyn, Cecily. It pains me very much to be forced to speak the truth. It is the first time in my life I have ever been put in such a painful position, and I am quite inexperienced in doing so. However, I will tell you frankly that I have no brother Ernest. I have no brother at all. I have never had a brother in all my life, and I certainly do not have the smallest intention of ever having one in the future.
No brother at all?
None.
Had you never a brother of any kind?
Never. Not of any kind.
Seems, dear Cecily, that neither of us are engaged to be married.
It is not a very pleasant position for a young girl suddenly to find herself in, is it?
Come, let us venture into the house. They will hardly venture to follow us there.
No. Men are so cowardly, aren't they?
This ghastly state of affairs is what you call Bunbury, I suppose?
Well, yes, and a perfectly wonderful Bunbury it is, isn't it? In fact, the most wonderful Bunbury I've ever experienced in my life.
Well, you had no right whatsoever to Bunbury here.
That's completely absurd. One has the right to Bunbury wherever one chooses. Every serious Bunburyist knows that.
Serious Bunburyist?
Well, one has to be serious about something. I happen to be serious about Bunbury. What on earth you are serious about? I haven't the slightest idea. Everything I should fancy. You have such a trivial nature.
Well, the only small satisfaction I can take in this wholesale affairs is that your friend Bunbury has quite exploded, hasn't he? You won't be able to come down to the country as often as you used to, and a good thing too.
Well, your brother Earnest seems a little off colour, doesn't he? You won't be able to trot up to London as often as your wicked custom was, and not a bad thing either.
As for your conduct toward Miss Cardew, you taking in a sweet, innocent girl like Miss Cardew is quite inexcusable. Not to mention she is my ward.
I see there being no good reason for you deceiving such a lovely, brilliant girl such as Gwendolyn. Not to mention she's my cousin.
I wanted to be engaged to Gwendolyn. That is all. I love her.
Well, I merely wanted to be engaged to Cecily. I adore her.
There'll be absolutely no chance of you marrying Miss Cardew.
Well, I don't see then much likelihood of you and Mrs. Fairfax ever getting married.
Well, that is no business of yours.
My dear fellow, even if it were my business, I wouldn't talk of it. Only stockbrokers and the likes do that. And even then, merely at dinner parties.
How can you stand calmly eating muffins when we are in this horrid trouble? It's perfectly heartless.
Well, one can hardly eat muffins in an agitated manner. The butter would get all over my cups. No. The only way to eat them is quite calmly.
Under the circumstances, it's perfectly harmless.
Jack, I wish you would have some tea cake. I loathe tea cake.
Oh, I suppose a man can't eat his own muffins in his own garden, can he?
But you just said it was perfectly heartless to eat muffins.
I said it was perfectly heartless under the circumstances.
Yes, but the muffins stay the same, don't they? Besides, particularly
For God's sake, Andrew, why don't you go?
you can't possibly ask me to leave without having some sort of dinner. Nobody goes anywhere without having some sort of dinner. Unless they're vegetarian. No. And even though I've made an appointment with Dr. Chaucer to be christened at 5:45 under the name of Earnest.
The sooner you give up this ghastly state of affairs, the better. I myself also have an appointment with Dr. Chaucer at 5:30, and I will gladly take the name Earnest. Gwendolyn would wish it. We can't both be christened Earnest. It would be absurd. Besides, Dr. Chaucer thinks it's highly probable that I was never christened at all. You, my friend, have already been christened.
Yes, but I haven't been christened for many years now.
Yes, but the fact is, you have already been christened.
So I know my constitution can stand it. You, however, I think it might be rather dangerous for. Wasn't your brother very nearly carried off by a severe chill quite recently?
You said yourself, a severe chill was not hereditary.
Well, it used to be, but I dare say science is making wonderful improvements against it.
That is nonsense.
Jack, you are at the muffins again. I wish you wouldn't.
But I don't like tea cakes.
Well, why do you serve tea cakes for your guests then? What ideas do you have of hospitality?
Andrew, I have already asked you to leave. Why are you still here? Why won't you leave?
I haven't finished my tea yet. And there's still a couple of muffins left.